You ever seen the original 2001 Fast and the Furious where Paul Walker gets in this street race with Vin Diesel? He's behind, but right when things look bleak, he injects the NOS and for a brief moment time and space warp as he passes to first before his car implodes. Now, imagine you were able to distill that one brief moment, then inject it into yourself along with an almost fatal amount of LSD, and what you get is Redline, a 7-year-long production with over 100,000 frames that premiered in Japan for the first time in 2009. Now, over a decade later, some fuckboy YouTuber with way too much time before the 2020 summer season ends has decided to grace your eyeballs with a first-of-its-kind movie review. So sit back as we go over Redline's story, characters, music, animation, and fun factor to see if this cult classic stands the test of time. Story. Once every 5 years, the universe's most thrilling, extravagant, and anticipated race, Redline, takes place, where the only rule is that anything goes. Enter JP, a racer who makes it to the Redline due to other racers dropping out, who tries to prove that speed and driving skill is the only thing that matters on the racetrack. But there is a twist. The reason those riders dropped out is because this year's race takes place on Robo World, a planet who plans to shut down the race through any means necessary in order to prevent the leakage of their military experiments. With dangerous racers, a bloodthirsty military, and mafiosos fixing behind the scenes, can JP get to the finish line in one piece? Right off the bat, when you hear the premise, you know that this story is a bit whack. At its heart, it's a simple story about a racer fighting against ludicrous odds to try and win the race of his dreams. Deviating from that, however, this is a space opera detailing a universe filled with different alien races, empires, and criminal gangs. That being said though, this opera feels thin with the amount of detail it wants to give about the galaxy and its auxiliary characters. Not saying that there isn't detail there if you want to closely observe each scene, because there's plenty of subtle visual clues that will detail the many characters and settings, but frankly speaking, there isn't anything too much deeper than the opening premise. There are gripping tensions between JP's desire to win and his friend/mechanic Frisbee cooperation with the mafia to do race fixing, but that takes a bit of a backseat compared to the initial drive to drive. Even RoboWorld's military actions are taken mostly as humorous, overly dramatic villains that feel like they were stripped out of the Power Rangers universe. Not really overly evil, but more like crazy for the sake of putting us into visually stunning situations, which is oddly enough a strong point given the context of the movie. But even so, the story itself serves to be the functional vehicle to drive the amazingly detailed race scenes. In that sense, I believe it has thoroughly succeeded though. Characters. There are many characters in Redline, but there are only a handful where you could describe them in any amount of detail outside of two-word descriptors. Magic girls, policeman, machine man, bounty hunters, big bad, etc. Really, as far as fleshed out characterizations go, it really begins and ends with the main protagonists. JP, or Sweet JP, is a pure-hearted racer with a beautiful duag. Ever since he was a kid, he always looked up to the racers, with one unnamed golden figure as a racer driving off as his ideal to chase, and almost to prove that he doesn't use weapons on the track, with only speed and skill being how he operates, thus giving him his title of Sweet JP. His main love interest is Sonoshi McLaren, otherwise known as Cherry Boy Hunter, the only other human in Redline and who takes racing seriously ever since she was a child. We are told that at some point JP and Sonoshi knew each other, but really there isn't a whole lot of setup or reasoning behind the hookup. They really skipped on their past relationship that barely comes up, and the reason why she's nicknamed Cherry Boy Hunter. Why? I don't know. Honestly, the only things that come up from her in the story are her really intense passion for racing, and then you also have other characters like Frisbee the mechanic, and somehow also apparently JP's best friend, and the Spider-Man mechanic Mogura, who's the Clutch. It is pretty clear that there isn't anything very worthwhile in the actual characters of Redline, who barely have any personality or background history to speak of. If the film was just an extra half hour or so longer, maybe we could have seen a more solid role romance or romantic drama formed between Sonoshi and JP, or a more detailed path of why Frisbee worked for the Mafia, or even characterizing the racers more. But at the end of the day, the movie is more about style than it is about its story or characters, and I suppose that if you spend all of your time making the best about one aspect of your movie, you're probably going to neglect other aspects of your movie. Music. As this is the first movie I've ever reviewed on this channel, there is no OP or ending in the traditional sense, but there are multiple very notable songs to go over when discussing the incredible soundtrack of Redline. You have songs like Yellow Line that set the mood for the whole movie, with its constant driving synths and drums, screaming guitars, and bobbing vocalized tracks. Really, this song just exudes every single feeling of early racing games condensed into a single song, which sort of lends it this nostalgic kind of sound. Then you have these more relaxed tracks like And It's So Beautiful featuring Kitty Brown that for some reason reminds me of Misty songs from the To Be a Master album, but that might just be me. Either way, it's this smooth R&B song that just grooves at the club late at night with a glass of something sweet and strong lying at the edge of a table, and it's very nice. And we have the song that plays whenever the Super Boings appear on screen, Kari no Shifto wa Bun Bun Bun, or the English translation of His Shift is Bounce. I think this song encapsulates the weirdness that this movie can get with a bouncing bass and a shifting synths, not to mention the J-pop Vocaloid-like performance of the Super Boings. Most of the background tracks range in style and genre, with some that start off more like electronic funk, to surfer rock, to slow R&B, to these ominous organ performances. There is a little bit of everything within the soundtrack of Redline, and some serious bops to boot. I can't imagine anyone hating the music in this movie. Animation. It's no secret that this film is a bit weird, but when it comes to anime, the more wild the story, the more wild and imaginative the visuals have to become to pull it off. So let me start things off by saying that this movie hits visuals out of the goddamn galaxy. Everything feels like it belongs in the world as you meet dozens of odd, discontinued Star Wars races interacting around in this intergalactic world of Redline. The style is this darker, outlined, and heavily shadowed style that gives every single object in this movie this distinctive manga-like visual, which moves around buttery smooth through the film. And that is the power of over 100,000 frames, as this is perhaps the closest thing you could get to manga in perfect movement. But that is the thing about Redline. The animation is by far the best thing about the movie. It is jaw-droppingly smooth and crisp. The race scenes are chef's kiss perfection. And when things get spicy with the characters going turbo, god damn, the visual effects that went into the goddamn do-wag light speed physics alone is worthy enough to outperform half the shows premiering right now. Watching Redline is the equivalent of watching the peak of animation. There isn't much more that could be said besides it's fucking good and you need to watch it. Fun factor. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it's goddamn fun. Are you kidding me? Why are you asking? Conclusions. Wait, alright, let me explain a little bit about why this is one of the funnest animated movies I have seen. It's because Redline isn't a movie. It's an experience, an audio-visual experience about fucking space racers driving around an alien planet while the army tries to stop them. The premise combined with the fantastic visuals alone sell the movie, but not only that, the music will start bumping at all the right times where not only are your eyes glued to the screen, but your head's bobbing to the beat. You are going to be enchanted by this piece of media. Now, I know that in the beginning of the review, I sort of harped a bit about the plain story and lackluster characters, but that is almost irrelevant with the amount of fun you can get from a movie. I'm able to watch a Michael Bay movie and have a good time. Not saying that this is comparable to anything shot out by Michael Bay, but the story just has to be able to be the vehicle of which the visual storytelling can take form, and the characters just need to be the puppets on the screen that do awesome stuff. And in my monkey brain, Redline hits all the neural pathways. Watch this movie so that you can experience the peak of animation. It's worth it for that at the very least. Conclusions. I'm not the type of guy to watch animated movies that often, but most of that experience is almost exclusively Studio Ghibli films. But Redline has shown to me that there is a big wide world out there where animated films can be put into the forefront for more people to enjoy. Though it might not have the most fleshed out world or characters, it has some of the best animation I have ever seen and a great soundtrack to back it up. Averaging all of our scores, we come to a final score of 7.7 out of 10 and a definite recommendation to watch it for yourself. As for alternate recommendations, we live in a lucky time, as before there really wasn't many shows or movies like Redline that's not named Initial D, but I believe I can say with some degree of confidence that if you enjoyed Redline, that you should definitely watch Apari Renman, a new show airing right now about a group of steampunk wacky racers racing across late 1800s America. It's surprisingly very good. With that being said, I'm Xeosphere and I make regular anime content. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more anime content just like this, and until next time, stay cultured.